Hello, beautiful, and welcome to the Moms Talk Sex podcast with me, Mor Yelvington, your host. I'm so excited that you are here with me today because I have the beautiful Lindsey here. Hey, Lindsey.
Hello.
I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm very excited for our conversation. I feel like a lot of women are going to be listening and really finding themselves in the shoes that you were wearing. So I'm really um, eager to see what is going to show up. So how about you introduce yourself and let us know what it is that you do in the world right now?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. First, let me just thank you for having me on. This is such an amazing podcast with topics to really empower women. And so I love that you do this. So, like she said, my name's Lindsey. I'm Lindsey Parson, and I do an array of things, but really my specialty, my passion is really helping women stop tearing themselves down in the mirror so they can love their bodies and build confidence so that they can move forward with purpose and passion while empowering their kids and future generations to do the same, because I feel like we need to be chain breakers.
Yeah,
And so it's really empowering women and moms to do that, to break these cycles and the generational curses.
I love that. So, how did you get to that point? I love asking my people, like, what was your journey to this? Because obviously, then start here right now, right?
Absolutely. I started my first diet when I was 9 years old. I, my mom is amazing, but she had her own body image issues that bled into my feelings. And from a very young age, I would flip through magazines, just looking at models, studying their bodies, and wanting that perfect body. And diet after diet, losing weight. I still fought with not feeling comfortable in my body. I hated putting clothes on, looking in the mirror. One of the biggest things is feeling uncomfortable with my husband with no clothes on. So that's a big one that has really got me so excited to talk to you today, because overcoming that was huge. I mean, I did lots of things to try to overcome this body image issue, including step on a stage and compete in a bodybuilding competition, because what better way to attain this perfect body and feel comfortable in my own skin? And it
Right.
still wasn't enough. So, you know, just the tools and the tactics behind building that body image, there's so much more than that skin deep.
Right. So, when did you realize it was a problem? Like, when did you realize this can't go on anymore?
Yeah, it was when I took away trophies. I stood on a stage in a bikini with judges telling me I had a perfect body. My kids were there, my husband was there, because this was even after I had both of my kids. And so at that point, when it didn't feel good, I didn't feel worthy, people would congratulate me. I mean, this should have been the pinnacle of my life. This should have been like I attained this goal that I had had since I was 9 years old. And so that's when I knew something was really wrong. Like, if I had attained this perfection that I was striving for and it wasn't enough, there was something internally wrong. And that's really when I started digging deep into that inner journey and digging into what were those past traumas? What were those things that gave me those worthy wounds that
Do
I
you mind
needed to go?
sharing some of those just so maybe the women listening can find themselves in that? Because so many times I feel like we just pass those along and we don't give it any energy, especially if we come from a home with loving parents. We
Yeah.
just feel like, oh, it's okay. I didn't have a rough childhood, and we're not aware of how many of those limiting beliefs are actually really destroying us on the inside.
Yes, I love this question because, like I said, I had an amazing mom. My parents are married. We had a lovely childhood, but it was that she was passing down her body image issues. And then the other thing is my dad, I was always striving for his attention because he was a business owner. So he was frequently gone. And so trying to get attention from him. And then I had two brothers. I was very talkative, and they would frequently just tell me, "Do you ever be quiet? Like you are so much. Can you just, and those little things that we don't even realize impact us so much." So you're absolutely right. You can have what looks like from the outside a perfect childhood, and those little things that we accept as truths can
Right.
really dig deep. It doesn't have to be a huge trauma.
Right. It's so true. I see that all the time. And I remember, growing up for me, my mom would always tell me how beautiful I was, but she would look in the mirror and tell herself the most horrible things. And I remember at the age of like 17 or 18, I looked at her and I said to her, like, every time you say that stuff about yourself in the mirror, how do you think that makes me feel about
Mhm.
my body?
Right,
Right. And so there was a lot of having to look in that place and be like, you can't tell me that I'm beautiful and then tell yourself how ugly you are. Like, it doesn't work that way. There
right.
was stuff to overcome there.
Yeah, and I think even now, especially as an adult, and being able to look back at that and understand that they weren't able to overcome their own demons, their own issues from the past, because it's such a different societal acceptance now to be
Yeah.
able to do that healing, to talk about your traumas, to talk about how you're feeling. Because I feel like, especially in my mom's um, generation, they didn't
Right.
talk about it. And so being able to move forward and show my daughter that it's okay to talk about. And I want you to tell me when you're not feeling good or something that I say triggers you, because I'm still healing. Like it's a never ending journey, no matter how much we've worked on it and how we get to this place where we feel like we're getting it all together. It's an everyday battle.
So how is it affecting your marriage life, your intimacy with your husband?
Yeah. So I've been with my husband for 21 years, and
Wow.
clearly we were together through this bodybuilding stage because I still didn't feel good enough. So I'll tell you, in the beginning, we were very physically attracted to one another. And because of my worthy issues, we had sex very early, like 3 dates in, which was essentially like a weekend. And so because I felt like that was what, if that's what this men want, that's what you do. And man, looking back now, like you look back and you think to yourself after this growth, like, how is that? Because this is definitely not something that I've really had the opportunity to talk about out loud. I've shared other pieces of my story, but this one is a new realm to approach. So we were intimate early, but I never felt comfortable to have my clothes off completely. I never felt comfortable to have the lights on or anything like that for a lot of years. We worked on things, talked a little bit about it, but for me, it was just easier to not talk about it. And our bodies were physically attracted to one another and just not say anything, go with the flow. And it really wasn't until the last 3 or 4 years that we've really opened up communication around, if I'm not feeling attractive, it's really difficult. Like if he's not making me feel attractive, right? Like I know that that's very terrible to say out loud, but if there aren't things throughout the day where he's telling me that I'm pretty, that he's telling me things that make me feel better, it's still difficult. It's still
Mhm.
difficult to feel like he desires me. And I know that he does. And after 21 years, like we're still physically intimate multiple times per week, but it's still that underlying, like, that has always been the one thing, feeling attracted, because that's how, when you feel pretty, when you feel like you have a nice body, that's how you attract men.
Yeah.
So, wow, this is interesting, because having to really dig deep for this, it's impactful for me specifically.
So it's always showing you kind of like, okay, this is how far I've become, and here's what I still have to
Yeah,
do and ask, right? These questions like, okay,
right.
why is it not, why do I need that validation? And
Yeah,
why is that important? Where can I find that validation from within me
right.
to know that I'm worthy?
Yeah,
And it's really that part, right? Like, how do we know without a doubt that we are worthy for who we are?
right. And this is where I say that, because I've done a lot of that work and that's what I teach. And so really looking at this relationship still with the one person who I feel like I'm the closest with and have had the deepest relationship with, um, because getting over needing external validation from others felt now a little bit easier. But I think that still, because this is the one person who you feel like you want to always desire you, because if they don't, then what is your relationship? What is your marriage?
Right.
And so that desire to still have him want me and make it apparent with his words and the way that he treats me, not just coming to the bedroom and being like, all right, let's go, you know?
Yeah. It's funny. We have girls' night with me and our girlfriends every week, and we were talking about just the feeling of wanting to be swooned. We
Mm,
have a girlfriend that's single, and so she goes on dates and she gets swooned, and there's this energy of that a lot of times when you're in a marriage for over 10, 15 years, 20 years, that kind of just fades away because you're so comfortable with each other. And I feel like we don't talk about that enough. And it's not really the need. Like I know you love me, I know you desire me. I don't need to know it, but I want to feel it, right?
yes,
Like I want to feel it. I
yes,
want to feel bloomed. I want to feel like a woman. So is it really down to, am I worthy of that feeling? Or is it like I just miss that being chased,
yes,
being chased, quote unquote?
yeah. I think that's a great point. I mean, you really hit the nail on the head there, because as I was saying it, I was like, it doesn't really equate to my worth, because I do know internally that I'm worthy, but it's that want to be wanted.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
after 21 years, I mean, still wanting to desire the same person, you want them to make it apparent that they still want you, and it's not just stale and stagnant and monotonous.
Right. It's so funny, a guy the other day in the parking lot told me I was beautiful, and I was like, "Oh, thank you." And it was like, "Oh, it's been a while since somebody just told me I was beautiful," kind of. So it kind of hit me in this interesting way, like flattered, but then, oh, I haven't had that for a while, right? And so I came home and I told my husband, "This guy told me I was beautiful, and it's been a while since you called me beautiful," right? So it was this whole funny thing between us. And I said to him the same thing, like we want to be soon. And so he started sending me these really funny GIFs or GIFs. I don't know what they're
Mhm.
called. Like,
Yeah, I don't either.
beautiful today. And I'm just like, this feels awkward even in a way because it's not normal. It's really funny. And I was thinking, okay, well, how can we incorporate this where it feels genuine? Right?
Right.
Because when you come with the ask and you receive it, then it's like, is it coming from me? Is it coming from you? It brings up all these questions. Again, I
Right.
don't necessarily think it's a worth. I think it's trying to play with these seasons of our life and the seasons of our relationship. How do we keep the fire going in these relationships where how do we grow with them and evolve with them to where we both feel the same compatibility?
Absolutely. And I think having those date nights still, because with an 11 and 14-year-old, like, we're busy with sports. We've got school, everybody's got their busy. And so making it a priority to prioritize your marriage and your partner, I think is huge after several years. Because again, it's not like there's anything that we have going on right now that's traumatic or detrimental. It's just the longevity and getting to where you start to take advantage, not take advantage, you take for granted. You take for granted the relationship that you have. And it's easy to just say, well, that person will always be there.
Right.
And what I think in that regard can get scary, because just like you and someone else giving you that little bit of attention, because it's happened to me too.
Yeah.
It's happened to me where, you're at the beach, because it happened. I went and was walking with my daughter, and some kid with a beer in his hand. I'm like, I'm probably old enough to be your mom, had made a comment about, oh, you look really good. And I was like, I'm old enough to be your mother. So, but when you get that attention and you haven't been getting it at home and you have to bring it up, that can really break open some of those worthy wounds too, though, even if you have gotten to a place where you're healed. And so
Right.
opening up that conversation, I love that you just came home and said to your husband, like, hey, this happened, and I don't feel like I've been getting this from you, because that isn't something I would have used to be able to do,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't feel like that was my place, and I wasn't worth telling him that I wasn't getting it from him. I would just stay silent and live in my own unworthiness.
Oh, wow. So what did you, I was gonna say, so what did you do to get to the place where you are now? Or maybe somebody that's listening, what could they start doing to get that sense of worthiness, right? To
Yeah.
know that that's okay, that they're worth it.
Yep. Reframing your beliefs, so that I would literally, even with trophies on the shelf, look at myself and be like, stretch marks, you are disgusting. Like, I would literally look in the mirror and still say that, even though I had trophies on a shelf that said you had attained perfection.
Oh,
And so starting to shift, and it's really awareness. Having awareness of those thoughts is the very first thing, and tracking them, being aware and saying, no, like, you have to stop yourself in the tracks, but it's not that easy.
no,
So
it's
it's
not.
really starting to be aware of the narrative that's there.
Yes.
Because if you're not putting it out into the light, anything is like this, but specifically the thoughts that you think to yourself, because we will live in our own mental prison forever until
Yeah.
you bring it to the light. So
And you'll
it's,
project it on others.
you do, absolutely. So that would be the very first thing, is awareness of what is going on in there. And then starting to write them down. Like, what I always challenge people to is, I ask them, when you have a job interview, you thought you killed it, and you're like, I got this job. And then they come to you and say, you're not the one. What goes through your head? Like, that's the first thing. What do you think to yourself when you have a rejection?
Right.
Because that's that deep down, like, and it doesn't have to be a job, but usually I'm working with women who are career driven. And
Right.
so that's how you target, like, something that you really wanted and you're rejected. What is the thought that goes through your head? What is that initial thought? Ah, I'm not good enough. I don't have a good enough education. What is it that goes through your head? Is it about the way that you look? I wasn't chosen because I'm ugly. I wasn't chosen because I'm fat. That's that, like, internal dialogue that you tell yourself when you get rejected.
Yeah.
So
And
when you,
yeah, like what would be the next step? Right.
yep,
So we
write
write
it,
it.
you got to write it down and reframe it.
Mhm.
So if it was, I'm not good enough because I didn't get this job, you have to reframe that to look like, I was not who they were looking for. So it can't be, I'm amazing. You can't trick your brain into going from this completely negative perspective to trying to trick yourself into a completely positive. So you have to reframe it first into like a neutral ground, and then tell yourself anytime that you are rejected, I am not who they were looking for right now. So it has to be a reframing into a neutral ground so that you can start re-implanting something that's a little more believable, because our brains are smart and they'll kick out something that's too different, that's too positive. And we'll be like, yeah, no, that's just ridiculous. So it's reframing it to a believable neutral ground.
I love that. And I also add with my clients, like, what if? What if? Because if you can live in the what if, then all those other stipulations, they don't matter anymore, right? Because you're in the what if.
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I love that. So if our listeners want to find more about you and what you do and how to work with you, where can they find you?
Yeah. So on social media, all the platforms, Lindsey Parson on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And then I have, a link with all of the resources to all of the things that I do, because it is difficult to define. Like, I work in so many different realms that gets a little confusing on just a regular website. So I have social media with a link in the bio that has all the links to everything that I do, because I work with a lot of different types of clientele, because I've got the mom, the corporate career. There's a lot of what I do.
I love it because we're never just one. There's not only one side of us, right? So we always have to
Right.
feed all the places of us that we can be of service. And I love everything you said and what you shared. And I really appreciate you being vulnerable, because I really do believe that so many women are in these positions, so many moms. And and I feel like talking about it just brings awareness to these places. So thank you so much for being with me today and having this really fantastic conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your encouragement and support, because this really was a difficult one for me that I haven't really dived into publicly yet. So thank you so much for what you do. It is so important.
Thank you. I'm the same, right? One by one, we will all be in the place
Absolutely.
where we can step into our power. That's cool.
Absolutely.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you for listening. I hope you tune in again next week and have a fantastic day. Go have some fun sex. Look in the mirror and tell yourself how beautiful you are. And we'll see you again next week. Bye.